Wait, it didn't play the intro. No, I was supposed to play the intro. Yeah, sorry for being 13 minutes late. Holy crap, there's a lot of comments here. Why didn't it play the intro? I'm so confused. Anyways, yeah, no, I'm like literally not ready. I needed that minute. Hey, everybody. Oh man, there's a lot of comments. This has to be bots. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe Jimbob saw it and he told people to come in or something, or they're just trolling me. I have no idea. Anyways, let's get started. Let's get started. W Jim. Look at all these. There's so many comments. Going all the way back. W Jimbob, PP Big L, W Jimbob, W. Wow. I've never seen ops like this. This is actually really funny. All right. Happy Easter Monday, everybody. I really don't get why is it that Christmas literally only gets 2 days? Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. But Easter, it's Good Friday. And even before that, there's Palm Sunday leading up to it, and then there's Good Friday. I'm sure they have a name for Saturday, but I should know, but I don't remember. And then Sunday, and then Easter Monday. Easter gets like 4 or 5 like venerated days or whatever, and Christmas only gets 2. I feel like that's weird. It's Easter Tuesday here in Australia. Well, all that does is prove that Australia doesn't even. So anyways, like I said, I wasn't ready quite yet. So here we go. I watched a tiny bit of this, but we'll see. I really wish that I would have done this instead. My debate was absolutely hilarious, and it was a good career choice for me to take that up. I wasn't offered this though. I would so much rather debate this topic. So W Eastern, what the fuck is going on? You guys are funny. This guy's name is Taint Nuffin. What could that possibly mean? Dude, I have never the comments are being spammed. What there's like 100 comments in one minute. Whatever. All right. Well, let's see what Jimbob had to say about evolution this time.
Doing biology. We see it happening in real time. Like,
oh, this is Craig's opening statement.
So today we're opening statement. Thanks for being with us, Craig. The floor is all yours.
I'm not gonna lie, I don't care what Craig has to say about this. It's not a knock against Craig or anything like that. I just don't really care all that much. It's not spicy, it's not interesting. And to the extent he gets things right or wrong, good for him, bad for him. Not really why I want to take a look at this.
Things change. Premise 2.
It's premise is doing a syllogism of why evolution is false.
Can you do what?
Oh man, I skipped way too far.
Hello?
Here you go. I think we lost you at, I think you had said the word.
Do. Wait, Jimbob fans, are you guys? So you guys are Orthodox too. So are you glad that the Pope is dead? Because remember, he was woke, and stuff like that. He openly admitted that women are people. So you guys hate the Pope, and you're glad he's dead, right? Do you guys think that JD Vance killed the Pope? Do you guys think that he did? Do you think that he had poison in his eyeliner, and he gave the Pope Eskimo kisses or butterfly kisses, and that's what killed him? Literally, how did it feel to get bent over a barrel by Jimbob in that debate? What are you talking about? Oh, so this is Craig again.
Screen uptick by but is always
What living organisms evolution.
Okay, so we're actually finally getting I'm just absolutely blown away by the speed at which these comments are flying through here. Jimbob is live sending people here. Oh, okay. I wonder if he's reviewing his debate too. Let's go look. I don't hold any animosity against Jimbob or anything. I mean, I kind of did a little bit before I talked to him. But now that I've talked to him, I'm like, I don't know, whatever. I disagree with him, but they titled his debate "The Pope is Dead," and it's look at this shit. Oh, Jimbob, you are absolutely you're a comedy genius. That's hilarious.
I did to Craig, but not just Craig, evolution. This problem of nominalism, and there's no such thing really as a species because it's ever changing.
Oh God, that's actually extremely funny. Okay. We're not doing what I said we were gonna do here. What is wrong with me? Pope dead. Cool lisp, bro. Somebody people were saying this in the debate I had on Modern Day Debate on Saturday. I do have a really mild one, but I'm pretty sure it's like the microphones don't do a great job of picking up your voice. Almost everybody sounds like they have one through these, but anyways.
All right, thank you very much. So I guess the question is, what is evolution? It's said to be the process by which different kinds of living organisms are thought to have developed and diversified from earlier forms during the history of the Earth. Now,
yeah, it's a textbook definition of it. I mean, there's all kinds of different descriptions of evolution. Change in allele frequencies over time. Boom. Or just broadly change over time, which would mean, I mean, that would apply to everything like erosion, so non-biological things, cosmic evolution, stellar evolution, whatever. But yeah, for biological evolution, that's a definition of the theory of evolution by natural selection. Although that didn't really invoke natural selection, I guess. But that's more of like the implication or the sort of, how do you want to say it? Not the logical conclusion, but the implication for evolution occurring over deep time. It would be all of those things. Oh, that's a great freeze frame on Craig there. So, but you can boil evolution more simply down to just simply change over time.
I like to point out that it's often claimed that evolution inside of natural biology and the
Oh, wait, since you guys are all here, there's the link. I know absolutely none of you will click on it. I just want to prove the point that none of you will do it, but it's there, and I will pin it. And there we go. Happy to be proven wrong, although I do just want to review this video.
natural world. It's in the natural sciences. It's referred to as a scientific theory. My contention with evolution is that it's actually not a valid scientific theory, because for something to be a scientific theory, there's actually a pretty strict criteria to call something a valid scientific theory. So not only do I have contentions with evolution and its larger claims, which goes outside of the bounds of simply adaptation, their larger claims over time are unjustified. But even
we have genetics and the fossil record. I mean, they're so incredibly well justified.
pinpointing the fact that
Oh yeah, he got frozen.
So only doing 5
calling something a
seconds.
okay, great, that's fine. All right. So I was talking about the scientific theory. There needs to be a criteria for calling something a scientific theory inside natural science. I said that evolution doesn't make its way through the scientific method. For those of you who are wondering what that is, it starts with an observation in reality.
Oh no. He's doing, this is the exact same script he did with me. He's really going to run that again? Oh, I thought that was just so bad. I'd like to debate this topic with Jimbob again, and it would be totally fine if he wanted to use that as his strategy. But I actually really hated our debate because during my cross-examination, I feel like I don't really remember it very well, but I talked about biology and evolution with him the whole time, but I really feel like during his cross-examination, he didn't actually care to discuss evolution at all, just the scientific method and his view of how something becomes a theory or whatever. Wait, what does this say? Andrew Wilson is raising the child of like 3 other dudes who banged his wife. Is that why he was too tired to show up to the debate, because he stayed up all night watching his wife bang other dudes? Is that what happened? Paul, what's up, Paul?
I've got no idea why I clicked on the link. It's just that you said nobody would, so I thought I would. I've literally just seen you've gone live, and I thought, hey up, is that a StreamYard link? So I thought I'd click on it just to say hello.
All right. Well, thanks for saying hello.
What's the topic then? I've literally just noticed you'd gone live, and I jumped on, and that's it.
I'm just reacting to a debate. And there are some trolls in the chat, so I put the link there to be like, all right, if any of you think you have a point, then there's the link.
Right, I see now. That makes a little bit more sense.
Yeah, it's basically it. All right.
Yeah,
I'm gonna get back to... Oh, sorry,
yeah,
go ahead.
I'm just going to say I won't disturb you any longer. I'll let you carry on with what you're doing. I'm just going to go jump in the bath. So I'll be watching you while I'm in the bath on my phone.
All right, sounds good. Thanks for being a viewer.
Yeah, no worries, fella. Catch you later. Cheers for letting me in.
Alrighty. Anyways, I forgot what I was we just didn't... He didn't have anything about evolution or biology to say. It was just kind of boring.
It starts with, you then ask a question about what you're observing, and then the question leads to what's causing what you're observing. Then it leads to an experiment. Then you have to actually do the experiment. You have to manipulate things, and then you come to some conclusion. And only after the conclusion can you develop what's called a scientific theory, which is essentially an inductive conclusion to a high percent of likelihood until proven otherwise. Now, I'm saying that evolution doesn't even make its way through this. It doesn't even have a viable hypothesis. The only arbiter for competing hypotheses, that is to say, Craig is saying, well, do you have any other explanation? The only way for 2 competing hypotheses to exist inside of natural science is experiment. But the fact that evolution doesn't even provide an experiment is it's sitting outside of the bounds of what's considered a...
he's doing the exact same thing. I really don't get the strategy here, because we do experiments all the time. And yes, it's true that the experiments we do today don't really observe... I mean, they don't observe new phylogenies, the law of monophily being broken or anything like that, which, if evolution were true, that would be seeing a Pokemon like evolution like that would violate it anyway. If you guys want to see, Gutsick Gibbon did a really good video just the other day. I listened to the whole thing while doing yard work yesterday, about James Tour and evolution, and how they make all these well, James Tour was just hosting the debate, but he had this other guy on whose name I can't remember. I've heard his name a bunch of times. That's him. But they do an extremely good job of debunking all these those sorts of talking points. And they actually go over some really awesome research that's been done. Shit. I just listened to it yesterday. I'm not going to be able to remember very much with it. But we've been able to see... We've seen multicellularity evolve in the lab. I think that's the one they were specifically talking about. But there was something else with... Can't remember if it was mice or Daphnia or what it was exactly. But there were really, really awesome... Damn, I'm going to have to go back and listen to that, because they were really good examples you could use with people. Anyways, L. Peterson. You guys are right, L. Peterson, for not remembering.
A scientific theory. It's basically a massive story, a hunch, a post-addiction, justification. You're looking back in time.
Oh yeah, getting back to what I was talking about though. So, like, we can experimentally verify that evolution happens, but they're just going to call it microevolution. So the claim that species change over time isn't supported because it's not an experiment. I find this to be really goofy. And this person has something to say. What's up?
Oh, hey man, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I'm not against evolution. I also believe in evolution. I've talked to Jimbob before. Like, it's on his YouTube channel. He might have made it only like a supporter video, But it was so funny because I took a genetics class, so I think your definition is probably one of the better ones for what evolution is. It got to the point that he just had to say that he doesn't share genes with his parents because I said, well, the definition of being related is sharing genes. And he's like, that's such a stupid definition. Why would you use that definition? And I was like, well, why do you say you're related to your parents? And he's like, I don't know. And I'm like, what do you mean you don't know? He seems to, I think it's like a dishonest tactic. He pretends that evolution, the event occurring, is different than the theory of evolution, all of the evidence that we have that proves the event occurs. And if you try to talk to him about evolution, like change in allele frequency, he just pretends that we don't share genetics with other things, which is really strange. I don't know.
Yeah, that I have no idea. That's just odd. Denied
Yeah.
that he shared genes with his own
Yeah.
parents.
Yeah, because I was having to. It was so funny because I was having a discussion and he was like, "What's your proof of evolution?" Like, because he did you need a testable variable, and I was like, "Oh, genetics. Like, we could test genetics. There's a bunch of different ways. Paternity tests, you know what those are, right?" And he's like, "Yeah, I know what paternity tests are." And I was like, "Well, yeah, the definition of being related to something is if you share genes with it." And he was like, "I think that's a stupid definition." I was like, "Okay, why do you think you're related to your parents? So, like, what does that mean that you're related to your parents?" He's like, "I came from my parents." And I was like, okay, yeah. And like, what do you get from your parents? Like, what does it mean that they reproduce and had you? And he was like, I don't know. They're just my parents. I was like, does it mean like you share genes, you share genetic information? And he's like, I don't know. And I was like, what do you mean you don't know? What? So it's kind of funny. I don't know. He's strange.
A little bit. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Anything else real quick?
Nah, keep doing what you're doing. Huge fan.
Thank you very much. Anyways, Jimbob, thanks for being a good sport with the chat troll. No, it's not. It's fine. It's funny. I find it funny. I don't know why it can be a little bit annoying, but I think once you know that you're being trolled, then it's fine. It's fine to play along or whatever. I debate you on intentionality in the universe. Yeah, Taco brought this up to me a couple months ago, I want to say, that you wanted to talk about this. Yeah, I'm up for that. I want to know exactly what you mean by intentionality. I don't think there's a teleos to the universe. So I just want to know. I just want to know more by what you mean by that, Jimbob. But yeah, I'm fine with doing that. And I remembered one of the things. This must have been the thing that I thought was really cool. So one of the studies, and it happens around this point, like go to like the hour and 20-minute mark and start listening, and then they discuss several examples. But what they're finding is there are these wolves, and they live on an island. I don't know if it's like Victoria Island or somewhere in Canada, but there aren't enough large land prey for the wolves. So they're starting to eat a lot more fish, and the wolves are starting to evolve webbed feet. So that's just really cool. Anyways, oh man, there are more people. What's up?
Hi. So yeah, I was just wondering, like, it seems like the problem with Jimbob, it's like he's trying to, like, you have to try like common ancestor and try to produce with a common ancestor like new types of species, right? And because you can't do it, you cannot do that like in real time. He argues against evolution, so he says it's not scientific, right? So I think that my take on that, it's that because science is more about how probable is this explanation to be true, right? All you have to do is if you have this common ancestor and it's able to explain everything that you see with higher chance than random, then you have a scientific theory, right? So I think that's the part that doesn't understand.
Well, but he kind of said that earlier. He said a theory it's an inductive process for generating higher value truth claims or something like that.
Yeah, sure, but it seems like he thinks that but not like you see the data and then you use kind of Bayesian type of approach, like this data seems more probable under this explanation and it's better than chance, so you have a scientific theory. But he's trying to say like, well, no, if you have to put this idea in the of that you think it's scientific to the test in real time, right? That's kind of the gap that I think he's not getting at.
I'm not totally sure if I agree with that, but I really haven't listened to very much of this, so I guess we'll see. I mean, the one thing he seems to be saying is it's begging the question when you try to do it outside when you don't go the experimental route, then you're begging the question, because this is what he brought up with me. I don't know if he'll make the same case here, but he says that doing it non-experimentally, you're just looking for the exact same kind of data that you use to formulate your hypothesis, and he calls that begging the question. But that's just totally false, because if it's true, then there will be data. And we didn't retroactively come up with these explanations after we had the data. I think that's maybe the most critical mistake. But anyways.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think that even if you come with the conclusion after the data, as long as it's better than chance, you have something there, right? It's not like you like, if I have the data and I come with this conclusion that I will make it a theory, then it's bad just because I did it like that. It's just if it's better than chance, then you have something that it's useful to predict something, right?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I just don't know. I don't know exactly what the hang up is.
Yeah, okay, sure. I just wanted to share what my thoughts were about Jimbob.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Matt, I see you there, but I'm gonna play a little bit more of this before I talk to anybody.
You're imagining what could have happened, and then you go and try to find evidence for the story that you told, right? So it's all confirmation bias. If the observation in evolution is
that's exactly what I was talking about. Let's rewind that just a little bit.
Of what's considered a scientific theory, it's basically a massive story, a hunch, a post-diction, justification. You're looking back in time, you're imagining what could have happened, and then you go and try to find evidence for the story that you told, right? So it's all confirmation bias.
I just don't see how that's any different than the justice system, for example. You don't have to, we don't have to say that a murder trial is this exact same thing as science. But like, we don't have to claim that you're doing science when you do that. But I don't know anybody that would accuse somebody of doing confirmation bias when they look for evidence that aligns with somebody who's guilty. Now, obviously, there are faulty methods of going about doing that, planted evidence, or just, I don't know. I'm not a criminal justice person, I guess, but there are all kinds of ways it can be done fallaciously. But I wouldn't say that anybody would call that confirmation bias. And yet, this is the same thing. I don't understand the argument there.
If the observation in evolution is variation of organisms, if Craig wants to try to take us through the scientific method and prove that evolution is a scientific theory, I would want to know his observation. Most of the time, they say variation of life itself, right? That's the observation. Now, the assumed cause.
Griffin, he's wrong. It's not confirmation bias. It's disconfirmation bias. I don't know what you mean by that exactly. If you mean by that the point of doing an experiment or looking for evidence is to try to prove yourself wrong, because in principle, like, a scientist believes their theory is true, but we test it in the interest of trying to falsify it. That's really, like, you can say you're trying to prove it, but you're also trying to falsify it, because we know how to falsify it, because we know what the evidence would be, and if we don't find it, then voila. So I don't know if that's 100% what you mean by that, but I think that's a powerful way of framing it.
I'm still waiting for many evolution proponent to tell me the assumed cause, because that's how science works. So my argument today is pretty simple. Premise one is scientific theory is the product of the scientific method. Premise two, evolution cannot be run through the scientific method. Conclusion, evolution is not a valid scientific theory. So what is it? Well,
I mean, that's not the topic of their debate, I don't believe, but the topic of the debate was really just nebulous, like evolution or not. So
it's a story, it's a hunch, it's basically looking at reality as it is and making an assumption about a past that you can't observe, and then trying to find some sort of supportive evidence for the past you can't observe, and that's pretty much all it is. Now,
yeah, but what's wrong with that? There's a if we can solve crimes, if we can do archaeology, like if archaeology is valid, if history is valid, if forensics, if investigating crimes, if any of that is valid, then evolution has to also be valid. If evolution's valid, then I need to know specific, like how is it fundamentally different from all of those? Because otherwise all of those are invalid as well.
Now, conflating adaptation at the local level, at the molecular level, looking at what bacteria does and doesn't, has nothing to do with the claim that every animal we see today comes from a previous kind of animal or a different population altogether that it all branches from. There's actually no evidence of this. I can give a hypothetical to demonstrate. Craig wouldn't even know how to delineate between evidence
Wait,
of
what'd you
this.
say?
Previous kind of animal doesn't, has nothing to do with the claim that every animal we see today comes from a previous kind of animal or a different population altogether that it all branches from. There's actually no evidence of this. I can give a hypothetical to demonstrate. Craig wouldn't even know how to delineate between a fossil he found that matches his hunch and a fossil he found that doesn't match his hunch.
I mean, yeah, we do. I don't know what he means by that. We have, I mean, the kinds of like the phylogenetic trees or the cladograms or whatever that are made on fossils are actually really they're really sophisticated, and they have like they're massive. I mean, they're really massive. One I really like is wonder if I can find the picture of it based on this. I used it in my book. Damn it. There's one for Brontotheres that's really good. But shit, I don't remember the name of the website I got it on. That's crazy. I typed that into Google and I only got like 20 image results before it says there are no more. Well, whatever. There's a really good evolutionary timeline branch, whatever we want to call it, cladogram, phylogenetic thing or whatever, for Brontotheres, because there are so many specimens of them that have been found like in the Badlands of South Dakota and other places. And it shows it very clearly. Anyways, sorry I couldn't pull it up.
In fact, when they point to, notice how when they bring up, say, transitional fossils, there's nothing that's not a transitional fossil. So when they say we found a transitional fossil, and I ask, are there any fossils that aren't transitional? He says no. So the distinction is
that is actually kind of an annoying talking point that I do hear pro-evolution proponents say. I have said it a few times that every fossil is a transition fossil because evolution never stops. That is, I mean, I wouldn't really call that exactly circular reasoning, but it kind of sounds like it. But it's really not true. There are, I think they're called end branches or whatever on the tree of life, like placoderms, armored fish like Dunkleosteus, which was recently nerfed, rip dunk. That's an end branch to the tree of life. They have no living descendants. So it's not actually a transitional fossil. So, I mean, but at the same time, like if we wanted to be uber pedantic about that, we could say like, well, you don't know that the Dunkleosteus fossils we have weren't the very last Dunkleosteuses to ever exist. Maybe they evolved very slightly into a new variant 5 million years later. We just don't have any fossils of them. Like, yeah, whatever, shut up. We can still call them end branches. Terminal branches, I don't know, maybe they call it that.
it doesn't matter. So if everything's a transitional fossil, then finding one, you might as well pick up anything out of the ground and call it a transitional fossil, because under evolution, it has to be transitional. That doesn't really tell us anything. It doesn't tell us how things change. It just says a story that things change. So
that's wrong, but I'm not going to blame him for that, because that is how it's communicated, and it shouldn't be communicated that way. That's why I'm here.
So that's another problem evolution has, is when you tell the story from a broad view, it sounds like a compelling story. It sounds almost correct. When you ask granular questions about what is actually occurring that makes this long process do its thing, they're at a loss for words. They basically just say it happens. Well, it just happened. Over time, it happened. Clearly, it happened. Well, I don't even think Craig or any other evolution proponents could actually tell me what happened. Like what is actually happening? So there's a famous mathematician and astronomer who stated the following in regards to astronomy. He said, I think this also applies to evolution. He said, as far as hypotheses are concerned, let no one expect anything certain from astronomy, which cannot furnish it, lest accept that as the truth idea is conceived for another purpose, and depart from the study a greater fool than when he entered. This applies to evolution because you don't have the ability to manipulate anything inside the evolution paradigm. All you have is the ability to manipulate things at the adaptive level.
This is what I'm talking about, everybody. So this is fish evolution. I can't even read what most of these say. It's a really blurry image, but there should be placoderms on here somewhere. Or are these not fish? They should be. Evolution of ray-finned fishes. Okay, so it's specifically the ray-fin type. But yeah, there are some that have no living descendants, whereas there are others that have quite a lot. So radiative or whatever evolution versus end branches.
Level, at the molecular level, at the local level. This says nothing. This demonstrates nothing about the macro, what's often called macroevolution. It says nothing about what happened. It says something about what you can observe happening. These are two different things. I would argue.
Like in a sense, the micro, like I don't know. He's just saying even if we observe microevolution, that doesn't mean that macroevolution happens, which is like true and false at the same time. Another thing they bring up in here in this conversation, which is really brilliant, and I can't remember in the exact context in which it gets brought up, but I think it was with the Daphnia, or maybe it was with it was either with the multicellularity, the Daphnia, or the we're witnessing endosymbiosis occur. God, there's a specific example that Dr. Dan uses, and it's driving me crazy that I can't think of what it is. But anyways, so I'll use a different example. Well, he does talk about animals incorporating algae into their tissues to literally become photosynthetic. But we could just take the endosymbiosis thing. We're witnessing a nitrogen fixing organelle, like right before our eyes, become incorporated into, I can't remember what it is, if it's algae. I think it was some sort of algae. But we're witnessing it happening right now, which means scientifically, logically, whatever, we know that it can happen. So you can't dismiss the idea outright, which Jimbob isn't really dismissing it outright. And he can claim that that's not strong enough supporting evidence. I would disagree, but we move on.
Argue that evolution itself as a large worldview is almost religious, and in the sense that what it does is it takes what might be true at the particular level, and then it says it's true about the whole, which is a basic composition fallacy. This essentially is the argument against evolution being a proper scientific theory. Evolution cannot produce a viable hypothesis, and it cannot be taken through the scientific method. Scientific theories are the product of the scientific method. They are not the beginning of the scientific method, and what we'll hear tonight is a bunch of beginning stories, then some supporting analogies or evidence to try to buttress the assumption. Well, the assumption is what's in question. I'm not granting the assumption.
Got it. And
Okay.
with that, want to let you know a couple of quick housekeeping things, folks. At that collab.
Body of facts. Just, I think you kind of have some misunderstandings about what a scientific theory is in relation to the scientific method. It's not just a product of the scientific method. A scientific theory is something that is well substantiated.
I wonder if I get brought up at any point during this. I want to know. I'm gonna see. Do I ever get brought up in this? Let's see if we can get. Does this have the transcript? Some videos do, some videos don't. And sometimes this website gives me the transcript really fast, sometimes it doesn't. So if I just type Peterson, so we're at the 6-hour mark. 5-hour mark, Matthew M. Peterson. No, it doesn't appear so. Okay.
With a body of facts.
Because it would have been interesting, because he's saying a lot of the same stuff I say. It would have been interesting if Craig said, like, you know, you did this with Peterson too. And so I don't know. It just would have been interesting.
Including observable experimentation and following the scientific method. The scientific method is just one aspect of having a scientific theory. The scientific method is itself just a method of helping us determine if a hypothesis has been falsified or not. It's not the entirety of the scientific theory.
But,
yeah, this Jimbob and I went over this. I said it's valuable and important, but I said that I don't think that it's necessary or required. Because like we had a Big Bang theory before. I mean, we will never have any Big Bang experiments, not really. Stuff with CERN, they mimic some of the earliest conditions of the Big Bang to try to verify what they think about the model, or to try to build a better add more accurate parts to the model. But we'll never really actually recreate it, but we have a Big Bang theory, and I don't think Jimbob accepts that one either, so I don't know if that would be productive to use or not, but whatever.
I think some misunderstandings of terminology there help towards your confusion.
Okay. Are you saying that a scientific theory is necessary, the scientific method is necessary for a theory, but other things can be included?
Yeah, it's part of the scientific method. It's not the scientific method is something that we use to try and falsify a hypothesis. That's just all it is. A scientific theory is a different thing. Using the scientific method as part of our experimentation process to then get, okay, so we now have a scientific theory. Yeah, it's part of it.
I'd say when people, I don't memorize, I don't memorize definitions and talking points for any of the discussions I ever have. My discussions are always very, very candid. And I never like intentionally planned that, but I kind of like that about the way I do things. I was actually thinking about this the other day. Because I realized, I said to myself, or I thought to myself, hey, wait a minute. So whenever I do, and I don't have any hate for people that do this differently, not really, but whenever I do my live streams on TikTok, I always tell the guest, oh, well, you get to pick the topic. We're going to talk about whatever you want. I don't say, oh, you don't think evolution is true? Well, here, how do I want to put this? The only way I can put this is to use a different example that different people use. Like somebody will say, like, I see mythicists, they have this debate where it's like Jesus never existed. And so the whole point is for people that aren't ready or prepared for what you're going to say to come up to your live stream, and they accept the discussion, and you have this entire like rhetorical or not, I don't know, like rhetorical and rehearsed thing that you're going to drag them through, and they're like not ready for that. Again, no hate on that or whatever, but it is kind of loaded. Whereas the way I do this is, I don't remember why I'm talking about this, but the way I do it is I have no idea what my guests are going to say, and I respond. Now I have all kinds of like data and studies and whatever that I use, but I'm not like, I don't set traps in my open discussions, I guess. That's all I want to say. And I bring this up because, why did I bring this up? There's something Craig said.
Try and falsify a hypothesis.
Oh, now I remember. So I tend to say that a scientific theory is a collection of proven hypotheses. And I think that that's a pretty good layman description, but even by my own account, that's not necessarily the case. I say it's a collection of proven hypotheses that that all converge around a unifying naturalistic explanation for something to that effect.
Just all it is. A scientific theory is a different thing. Using the scientific method as part of our experimentation process to then get, okay, so we now have a scientific theory. Yeah, it's part of it. But you were like, well, it's the product of the scientific method, which is just kind of a misinterpretation.
Well, I'm asking, I want to just clarify, is it possible to develop a scientific theory without the scientific method?
Scientific method is what you use to try and falsify a hypothesis. So if you want to have a hypothesis in your scientific theory, then you need to use the scientific method to get to that. But you're saying, right, is this one thing that's...
Yeah, my answer would be ideally, but not necessarily.
what's in here. You're not understanding what the scientific method is. The
I'm asking
scientific
you-
method isn't
Craig,
just a thing that slots
Craig, you didn't
in
answer- you
as
didn't
part. Yeah, let me finish what I'm saying.
You
The
didn't answer
scientific
the
method isn't just the scientific method isn't just something that slots in as part of this or that. It is a process. It is a tool.
I asked you
So all I'm saying is it's incorrect to say the scientific theory is just a product of.
I didn't say
scientific
just.
method.
I didn't say just.
You did. That was the word you said.
Craig,
But anyway, I
you're
just wanted to
gish-galloping,
clear
bro.
that up.
You're gish-galloping.
No, I'm literally not. I just wanted to clear
Literally.
that up. And Jimbo, when I give you an
answer my
explanation, you say I'm gish galloping. That's not my fault. You don't understand.
Let me know
I
when
just
you're
did directly answer your
Okay.
question.
So the question was this: can you produce a scientific theory without the scientific method? I didn't get a clear answer on that. I'll put it in premise form, Craig. A
I've already
scientific
answered that. Asked and answered.
interrupting. A
Asked and
scientific
answered. We can move on
interrupting
because I've
again.
asked and answered that. Yeah.
Okay, yes or
Yeah.
no?
Oh,
Yes or
man.
no?
I'm just saying I've asked and answered.
Okay,
and
keep
you
interrupting.
Oh, gee. I don't know what's going on anymore.
repeatedly
One at a
answered
time.
the
Joe, what's the most recent question?
questions, and now
Is that
the
a yes?
conversation can move
So
on. If Jimbob wants to continually
Wow.
answer the question,
Saying all I have to say is just, yep, I need you to answer it. So let's see. So I'm be a little window that pops up.
Okay. Well, in all of those words, I'm going to take it as a yes that a scientific theory needs to actually go through the scientific method. Otherwise, what are we talking about? Further, if there's two hypotheses, I would argue that the only way to arbitrate between two competing hypotheses is exactly that, the experiment, which is the scientific method.
Yeah, again, I mean, you can have the hypothesis that the Trojan War did happen, the Trojan War did not happen, and it's entirely literary fiction. Well, I mean, you can't experiment that, but we found the sieged city of Troy. So we know that the sacking or destruction or whatever we want to call it of the city of Troy happened. Now, was there an actual war back then when there weren't as many people on the planet? Is a war what we would just call a battle today? Or maybe like because the walls were so fortified, they went at it for so long, like over a year. And so we technically call it a war when in reality there were only a couple hundred, maybe a couple thousand soldiers on either side. So it doesn't amount to as much as we'd see today, but technically it's a war or whatever. Like, anyways, I don't know why I needed to go on that big rant, but we don't experimentally verify that those the either one of those hypotheses or whatever. The one is a negative, so it can't exactly be confirmed. But yeah, I don't know. This is odd.
So the reason I asked Craig, is a scientific theory something that has to be at the tail end of the scientific method? And I didn't get a clear answer on that.
asked and answered.
You're just going to please answer it again for the audience.
No, I refuse to answer questions.
Okay, that's fine.
Oh, jeez.
That's fine. If you evolution,
Definition of a scientific.
Beautiful.
Theory. Would you like me
Okay.
to explain to you how it is a scientific?
no,
theory?
not really.
No,
So
no, in fact, I'm going
if you're affirmative,
to
he's not allowing me.
Cross exam, or if I'm still in the, if I'm so with open dialogue, minute set, what are you guys? Open conversation.
Open conversation in conversations in debates have questions, have cross examination in the conversation. So if I'm going to
What
ask
do
a
you
question,
want to do, Jim Bob?
I want to cross examine. I want to cross examine his affirmative, which is a fucking debate. That's what a fucking debate is.
You want to
Oh man, this really went off the rails.
cross exam? Great. Okay. So it sounds like you guys are not willing to meet in the middle. Like, Craig, are you willing to do any sort of cross exam?
Yeah, if we can actually, agree on some terms. The problem is that.
So what we're gonna do is last question to Jim Bob, 5 minutes. Fair?
Yeah, cool.
We'll just
Does
keep
that
going
mean I
back and
get to
forth?
answer the questions though? That's the thing.
If they're yes or no, yes.
No,
Scientific theory, okay. Would you say evolution, being a scientific theory, can be run through the scientific method?
100% yes.
Okay. So if evolution can be run through the scientific method, can you give me the observation that you start with?
Let me see. I've got it all written down here.
Yeah, he asked me this. I don't remember. I mean, there would be multiple observations you could make. I think when he asked me this, I said, I brought up specifically like Archaeopteryx and birds, but I don't remember what I said was the observation that you make. I cannot remember. Or maybe I just said we observe that there's a diversity of life. I don't remember. Should we look it up? Let's check it out. Feature debates.
Hard.
Do. Observation. That comes up 67 times. Holy fucking shit.
Anatomy, right? All I'm asking you is current Can't even
hypothetical.
get to the
Before
we can't even
genetics,
get past
before the
observation.
modern
Let
synthesis,
me ask
before
you.
any
No,
of that
stop your
stuff.
story. Stop the filibustering storytelling. I don't care about your stories. Observation. There is a fossil that has an anatomy. There is a current animal today that has similar anatomy, right? All I'm asking you is that the observation?
That's one of the observations. Yeah.
Okay, let's start with that.
Yeah.
Thank you. That was really
Okay.
hard.
This is where it actually
Evolution in the
starts.
evolutionary theory. What's the observation?
There are like countless different kinds of observations you could make for evolution.
One. The best one that you think supports that it's a theory, the best observation you got.
The fossil record and genetics.
Okay, I observed a fossil or a collection of fossil, right? So the observation is fossils, plural. Okay. Is the question what causes fossils, plural?
What?
I'm asking you, if you found fossils, what's the observation?
Really quick. We don't. So the fossil record was used to build support for evolution, but then there are fossils that were observations.
Excuse me. The theory. You didn't even get to the theory per scientific way, which is start with an observation. You don't assume the theory because you didn't get there yet. You have to start with the observation, not tie an observation to your assumed theory. This is not science. This is pseudoscience. So again, if you're going to claim that you found fossils, is there something specific about the fossils you're calling your observation?
Yeah, the characteristics of the fossils. So, okay, so I basically said comparative anatomy between fossils is what you could use. Let's talk. Oh man, it's covering me up. Thank you so much for the 1999. Do you agree with Craig that everything is an accident, therefore sex is an accident? If so, you would also have to accept, like Craig, that cheating on your wife is an accident in all possible cases. Do you? I don't think that everything is an accident, and I highly doubt that Craig ever said that. You're probably just saying if there's no God, then everything happens because of random accidents, random collisions of molecules. No, the laws of nature are not random accidents. So,
observation: bacteria sometimes develop new traits of resistance under pressure.
Okay, and so if the scientific method asks a question about what you're observing bacteria do a thing, and then what's the question you're asking in the scientific method about that observation?
Can we observe evolution happening in a lab environment across generations?
No.
Yeah, he's got this like all scripted. I don't know, which I don't like all that much.
Well, that's another observation.
Well, I shouldn't even say that because I mean I've gone into debates multiple times where I wish I would have said something different. So
bacteria do a thing, and then what's the question you're asking in the scientific method about that observation?
Can we observe evolution happening in a lab environment across generations?
No, that's another observation. You're
no,
restarting.
No, it's not a question.
Can we observe?
What?
Is an observation, Craig?
Yes, it's a question. Is it a question? It has a question mark at the end.
Okay,
Therefore,
okay.
Jimbob, it is
Enough.
a question.
Wait,
Enough.
didn't he ask,
Not-
didn't he
not-
ask, can we observe?
Jimbob.
Yes, I said this, James.
Jimbob, I'm
Dude,
sorry, I'm answering the
stop.
question.
You're not
oh man, it's so cringe how off the rails it is.
asking the question.
I'm answering the question. I'm trying to answer the question. If you could allow me the courtesy of answering the
Okay,
question. to you.
go ahead. Like, you're burning up time. Can you observe?
Can you observe?
Sadly, Craig does make that claim. It's a huge boob on his part. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why you would say that. Unless he was just trying to be like, yeah, sure, go with it. Everything's an accident. So what? I don't know. I have no idea.
Evolution happening.
Why are
in
you
a
asking?
If you watch the Q&A, I asked Craig that and he said yes. Okay. I would like to see in what way he said yes, but
Question. It's been
across
asked 3 times.
generations,
Just
that's the
directly to
question.
the answer.
So in the scientific method, the observation is the beginning. Then you ask a question about the phenomenon you're observing. Notice when I asked Craig what, because you're leading to the hypothesis, what causes the phenomenon you're observing. Notice when I asked what the question is, Craig went back to another observational question. No, he's back at he's back at the start of the scientific
No,
method.
incorrect. The question can be an observation. It doesn't need to not to be an observation.
Right.
The question can be, oh, can I see this happening? That can absolutely be a question.
Yeah, that's another question.
I'm actually really confused as to what the problem here is. So, we observe bacteria in the lab. Yeah, what was it? I'll have to go back.
Observation. Bacteria sometimes develop new traits of resistance under pressure.
Okay. And so if the scientific method asks a question about what you're observing bacteria do a thing, and then what's the question you're asking in the scientific method about that observation?
Can we observe evolution happening in a lab environment across generations?
No, that's another.
So the observation is we observe bacteria gain new traits. Can we observe evolution in the lab? Yeah, I would say that that's really not very good because you're not positing a cause. Well, I don't know, because I don't know. This is a little bit weird. We observe. I think he should have made a different observation instead of his I don't think there's anything really wrong with his question. I think his observation was kind of bad. So I would ask something more general, like, actually more specific. I don't know. What would be the better way of going about this? So for like for example, we see antibiotic resistant bacteria emerge. So can we see that emergence happen in the lab? I think that's fine, but that is basically what Craig is saying here. So I'm not totally sure what the big deal with this is. I can't think of a better way to put it, though. Like you could get more high resolution and say, can we confirm that the antibiotic resistant bacteria emerged as a product of evolution? I guess you just have to be more specific.
So much additional.
No, I'm in the middle of talking. The next step is making a prediction based on the hypothesis. You can shake your head all you like, but I'm the one with the physics degree. The next step after the hypothesis is you can make a prediction. The prediction would be if I put the E. coli in a solution that would stop it being able to breed itself because of poison. Then
so if you poison something and it dies, that's evolution. Dude,
I haven't finished my sentence.
Here's the thing,
the prediction is if I put the E. coli in a solution that is poisonous to it, will it evolve to adapt to be able to overcome that poisonous solution?
That's a different hypothesis than evolution.
No, it's not. That is a prediction from the hypothesis.
Let me answer. Dude, this is absurd. James, this is absurd.
We're going to go to the next. We're going to go. All right. What's your question, Jimbob, that you'd like to ask?
I wanted Craig to take me through one observation to a hypothesis.
Craig, shut up so we can actually get this. I'm just giving Jimbob a chance to say what he was asking.
Boy.
I want a simple observation that leads to a hypothesis. Craig went from observing one thing to then introducing poison. Okay, observing.
That's a prediction.
Can you control yourself? That's a different observation, dude.
It's not. It's a prediction.
That for a different observation.
No, for the same observation.
Okay, so naturally in natural science, do you see a bacteria getting poisoned? Do you
yes.
Okay, cool.
Absolutely. Okay, that's what medication is.
That's a different observation than you originally said. Yes, it is.
Right. If you will give me just 2 minutes uninterrupted.
Oh, let's just give you 5 minutes. Yeah. Give me,
if you want me to, you asked me the question, Jimbob. Can I take you through the scientific method of an observation?
Yeah.
I am doing exactly that.
What's the observation?
The observation is bacteria sometimes develops new traits or resistances under pressure.
That's great.
Do we agree? Do we agree?
Great. That's an observation. Great. Now the next question in the scientific method is what causes that?
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
No, it's not.
Yeah, so I would disagree with Jimbob here because the next step would be to develop a hypothesis. Let me go back.
Observation. Great. Now the next question in the scientific method is what causes that?
Well, okay. I guess he's kind of right here to develop your hypothesis. But typically, I don't know. It depends on, again, the scientific method. It's not like it's a rigid series of, it's exactly 7 steps and it must exactly go this way. But sometimes the way I typically teach it is we make an observation, and before you just observe something in nature or whatever, before you generate the hypothesis, you actually should collect a lot of information, like preliminary stuff, or just read other people's data or whatever before you form the hypothesis. So I think Jimbob is just being kind of unfairly nitpicky here, but I think he doesn't, assuming Craig's doing what I'm talking about, I can see how Jimbob just wouldn't see that that's where he's going with it.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
No, it's not.
What else would the question be?
The question doesn't have to be what causes that.
What's the hypothesis?
A question that comes after.
Yeah,
Jimbob, you ask me a question, you don't let me answer. Evolution happening in a lab experiment across generations, right? That is the question I have developed from my observation. Now we have the hypothesis. The hypothesis is if E. coli is grown for thousands of generations, it will evolve to become better adapted to environment.
Yeah.
That is a logical progression from the observation question hypothesis.
Okay, that's
The
fine.
next part is the prediction. The prediction is if you put the E. coli in a solution that is poisonous to it, it will adapt to the pressures and overcome the poison. The next step is the experiment. And this experiment has been going on since 1988 and is still ongoing.
Adaptation
Today. Is in fact the longest, ongoing experiment. I said 2 minutes. You said you give me 2 minutes.
So adaptation.
Galloping, answer the question.
Craig,
Craig is a little toxic.
observing adaptation and calling it evolution are two
That
different
is
things.
evolution. No, it's not.
That's no. Then why are you using different words?
Adaptation is part of evolution. Adaptation is evolution.
I hate the adaptation evolution thing. I hate it so much.
Evolution is
Good.
adapting to your environment.
James, this is
Hold on.
insane. This is insane. Is a different thing. Then you can't make them synonymous exactly. Okay. So when you say I watch something adapt, you're watching something at the local level adapt, like change to some sort of inputs. Okay. This is not what's in question tonight. What's in question tonight is some sort of transmutation. It's some sort of macro change back in time. Evolution, the story of evolution, of how animals and populations diversified over time at the macro, large scale animals, sexual selection, all of that, right? We're not looking at a petri dish. All you're doing for the audience is saying, I looked at something change and react to stimuli, therefore what?
Okay, so there is no difference between macro and micro evolution. Evolution is evolution. You trying to separate them is a disingenuous tactic used by evolution deniers, right? It's not a difference. The fact that it can happen in a short time
Question begging. He said that that's not question begging.
or a long time is the same thing. The evidence of it happening is that we can make it happen in a short time. We can also go to the London underground mosquitoes, who literally became a different species, unable to interbreed with other mosquitoes within decades.
Why are you calling them mosquitoes?
I'm in the middle of a
Jesus. Here, I want to show you guys this. I can't find the original thing of it, but I posted this TikTok just the other day. So
normally survive 100
this
times.
experiment, what it is the white stuff. It's all bacteria, and what they did is they put increasingly stronger antibiotics at each of these intervals, and actually had the experiment run in two different directions. So this
in the middle,
displays all of these so many principles of evolution so incredibly well
the individuals
because it actually looks. Oh shit! I closed out of it. But if you guys remember that fish diagram or whatever of the branching
population,
it looks
some
just
of them
like this
will have
from an original population
that allow them
you get
to continue
this
to
divergence in
with
different
those
places,
individuals,
and some of them are extremely good at competing. Others are less good at competition, so they get narrowed down, and some of them just actually end up going extinct.
do,
We'll see
however,
if any
is
of them
vigorously compete against
I mean,
each
like
other.
those really
So
tiny
some
ones
have
right there.
great
You probably
reproductive
can't see them
success.
very well.
Others
But those
do
might
not, and they
just
may go
become end
extinct.
branches.
Others
on the
perhaps will survive
tree
through
of
to
life
another
here.
generation.
Fast forward, you dumbass.
Some right away, some
Yeah, so then, so you get all this proliferation. So it starts off, it diversifies a lot, then it gets narrowed down, but it ends up surviving and it goes through again. So there are all these mass extinctions, but then you get this radiative evolution
after
but
a long time. Now, what we see,
the more
see,
general
you
point,
can
which I think
see
is the more
of
powerful
same
point
thing.
to this, is one of the things that evolution doesn't have like a teleology behind it. And mute the video, we get 2x Peterson. Wait, you guys shouldn't be able to hear this because I have the site muted. Anyways, I want to see Planet Peterson debate a recorded Planet Peterson. That would be pretty weird. You guys can hear the video? What the fuck? It literally says I have the website muted. I'm sorry about that. That's so weird because I can't hear it. Huh. Fucking A. Well, okay, we'll just call that a failure. But anyways, so evolution doesn't have a teleology behind it, and this demonstrates that incredibly well because look at how many different points the bacteria, if we just go to this very first one, look at how many different points the bacteria are able to migrate into this resistant area. All of these bacteria are able to do that for different reasons. It's different mutations or how do I want to say it? gene expressions in each case that allowed them to be able to do that. And this expresses that extremely well. Check the Discord. You sent me something that I'm going to like. Oh, spicy.
A sentence.
So it's a mosquito.
I'm in the middle of a sentence because of the pressure.
Jesus Christ. Oh, man. Okay, I'll go look later.
Of the environment they are. Evolution is literally
You need to produce an experiment if the observation is identical to the term evolution, dummy.
because we have to test a hypothesis, dummy.
No, look, do you understand the problem you're in?
There is no problem. I have no problem. You are the one that doesn't understand evolution. You are the one that
Oh
is
my gosh,
disingenuously trying to
James.
separate
Alright,
macro and
we
micro
have to do
evolution
something.
like they're different. Okay.
This
Things
is a
I don't
fantastic
really have
question.
questions for him because I was here to answer.
Question begging.
No, it's not. It's part of the debate. There's no question begging
No,
there.
look, okay.
In a debate,
oh my
there's
gosh.
evidence for that.
Oh
Jimbob hasn't presented evidence for an
Okay,
alternative. So
this is
I
this is
don't know
more
how
like
to ask
a
much
this is
so
more
much story.
like this is more like your more opening statement, but this is a good time to ask questions to Jimbob.
Yeah, that's the point. I don't have any questions for Jimbob because he hasn't presented an alternative for me. It's about that alternative. The thing is, I don't know what his position is apart from I don't understand evolution. I have evidence for evolution and I can explain evolution to him, but he's not even accepting the fact that evolution, there's no difference between micro and macro. He's just going, oh, well, that's different. And I say it's different. I mean, what questions can I ask him?
Yeah, tell me when
Please,
you're
Jimbob, present your case for an alternative to evolution.
Well, first of all, presenting an alternative would appeal to the scientific method, being that the only arbiter for two competing hypotheses is an experiment in natural science. But if I can't even make, if you can't even take evolution through the scientific method, dude, I'm talking. Also just said that observing adaptation at the bacterial level is observing evolution. If observation of adaptation is identical to evolution, then you're observing the theory that you're trying to prove by just naming it evolution. Now, if all you had to do, Craig, is observe bacteria, you wouldn't need to craft a scientific theory because your observation is literally the name of the theory, evolution.
If you just want to make assumptions.
I really don't get it.
Yeah, but the fact is, in science,
I really don't get it. If we're just gonna, I guess he's accusing us of retrofitting our theory into our observations. Essentially, that's what he's accusing us of, but that's just not the case. And maybe Craig's not articulating it in the best way, although I thought he actually did okay. But I think it's just the complete inability for both sides to be able to have a conversation that's making this so unbearable. And making it so neither side looks like they're even doing anything.
we like to observe something, ask a question about it, form a hypothesis, predict from that hypothesis, and then test that hypothesis. Because we don't just go, oh, we saw a thing, we saw it happening.
You know, you Jimbob fans, instead of saying W Jimbob, why don't you say win job? Huh? Win job?
So therefore, that's that. As in science, we like to go through the scientific method. And Jimbob, you are lying to.
Oh wait, no, it's Jim Bob, so it'd be Win Bob. My bad, Win job. So Win Bob. There, I gave you guys a new phrase you can use. Win Bob.
Why you're watching right now by saying I couldn't take you through the scientific method when I did exactly that. You not understanding the scientific method and disagreeing with the scientific method is a you problem.
Okay, cool. So this is the thing. If observing bacteria change and react to stimuli is evolution, then it's unnecessary to craft a hypothesis or a theory because you're literally observing the thing you're calling evolution everywhere.
No, it's not, because you do that to do science. You don't just go,
wow,
well, I'm observing
big brain stuff.
I'm talking. You don't just do it. You don't just look at it and go, well, that's that. Even if you think you've observed the thing happening and you call it that thing, you still do tests on that thing to make sure it is that thing. You go through the scientific method, like I have with you many times already, Jimbob, and you have just denied it.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, so what Craig's not doing, and it's kind of unfortunate because in order to really articulate this, you have to do a lot of work. What you'd have to do is explain, like you'd have to go through the freaking history of the theory of evolution, and you'd have to say, okay, well, Darwin proposed that organisms change over time, and that variation is heritable, and that nature's going to select certain variants to be more favorable, to have better fitness, and populations change over time because of that. Then that was the idea. And then we discovered much later genetics. And so we figured out, so characteristics of organisms actually are heritable. We know what the molecule for it is. We know the statistics behind it. So now what we need to do is go into the lab and test, are the survival differences between organisms due to the heritable genetic variances between them. If it came down to something, if it came down to something else, or if, I guess that's the only real way to put it, I suppose. If it came down to something else, then that would, in a really huge way, it wouldn't falsify evolution, but it would definitely falsify Darwinian evolution by natural selection. But anyways, we can do things like the long-term E. coli experiment, and we can verify that it is a genetic change that is causing the populations to become different. So you'd probably, I don't know, that says most of it, but look at how much work that is to explain how how we're not just begging the question and observing things and doing retroactive fitting. You have to literally tell the whole story behind how the theory got developed from its inception to its modern sense, and then how an experimental apparatus could confirm that. So that is, yeah, that's kind of part of why this debate really isn't all that fair.
Here, let's take a different approach here. Let's take like a cat, okay? A cat, would you agree that a cat is a sort of universal category of an animal?
A cat is a universal category of an animal.
Yeah, a cat's not a dog, right?
So in evolution, we can't really say that it's a universal category. Not exactly. I mean, a cat isn't a dog, but to call it a universal category is...
Well, no, a cat's not a dog.
Okay,
It's a
cat's
genetically separate species.
Gotcha. Was there a time under the evolutionary view where a cat, as we know it today, actually wasn't a cat? That it just didn't exist?
Oh, you kind of asked two different questions. At one time, cats didn't exist, but what it sounded like you were saying at the beginning was like cats today weren't cats or something like that.
Yes, cats and dogs and you and I all have common ancestors.
Okay, so if the common ancestor for a cat was one thing, how do you look at bacteria changing and come to the conclusion that there was once an animal that's not a cat, that the splintering from, the fractioning from, became a cat, where a cat emerged from this process? How do you extrapolate the one to the other?
We look at the evidence we have, which is the fossil records that we do have, even if they're not 100% complete. We look at what we do have, we form hypotheses from all the information that we have, and we go, well,
and genetics.
if this is what we think evolution is, then we can test it and see that we can change a species. Now, when you put E. coli into a solution that is poisonous to it, it literally becomes a different species of E. coli with different DNA and different attributes to survive within that solution that was previously poisonous to it.
Dude,
I'm in the middle. If you want me to get through an explanation,
I'm not going to say anything.
now, more clearly, how do you look at the local level of change, which I call adaptation to external stimuli, right?
evolution. That's what evolution is.
Stop. That a cat,
And how we take fossils
you just look
and
at
we
them?
look at a person speak. Cool. After we compare them to what is now, and we make inferences, and we use that as part of our hypothesis to then form predictions and do tests. Now, here's the thing: we don't have time machines, so we can't go back in time and test something for millions of years. But what we can do,
Man, how much longer does this go on? I can't listen to this whole thing. Oh. It goes to 8:36, and I'm at... Oh, man, this goes on for 2 more hours? How long is this? Holy shit.
it starts
How's that even possible?
an experiment like there was one started in 1988 to continually test the hypothesis of evolution being adaptation to
I'm just going to skip way ahead.
environmental pressures, right? You keep disingenuously as one of the things.
that's a good answer to you?
Yes, yeah, because that is one of the things you do. Look at the similarities. That is very important.
Okay, so I just want the audience to understand, when I ask the question, when you look at things that are similar, how do you determine that one came from the other? And the answer is you look at how they're similar.
You compare the similarities. Yes, Jimbob.
Okay.
You do comparative anatomy, Jimbob.
Okay, cool.
Jimbob,
Yeah, so I don't know, and we didn't listen to very much of it, so maybe Craig didn't delve into the like fossil history between the two species. Because yeah, if you just say this animal and this animal look similar, are they related? Well, let's do comparative anatomy. That wouldn't really be enough necessarily, but what I would do is look at the genetics.
once again, you just interrupted me. Remember, the debate is you can call it whatever you want. The fact is, it's become a different species. It is something that's unable to breed with the other mosquitoes. It probably should have a different name because it's no longer part of that same species. So, what was a cow before it was not a cow? It's just a name that we have given it. It's still a different species because of adaptations to environmental pressures.
Okay, it sounds like that under the evolutionary view, the term species is actually not an objective term. It's a it's basically a nominalist view that there's only particular animals that are ever changing. And so when we point to a cow, we're only arbitrarily calling it a cow because it's actually in the process of changing to being not a cow, right?
Everything's changing. You're right. That's kind of the point that we had earlier, Jimbob, is that everything is
So Hinduism.
because
So you're a Hindu.
Sorry.
I'd say I'm more of a Buddhist, if anything. Anyway.
You're a
But
Hindu?
the point is,
What the fuck does that mean?
everything is transitional because we are constantly changing. Humans, insects, fish, everything is constantly adapting to the environmental pressures that we exist in. That's just a fundamental fact of life, and that's all evolution is. And that doesn't even go against God or anything. To the environmental pressure is that toxin's there. So their environmental pressure has forced them to that mutation then become a cohesive way of dealing with that toxin. That evolution in a nutshell is accidental, right? It's an accidental mutation that is the beneficial thing that becomes the adaptation to the
I think I understand.
pressure.
I understand. So it sounds like you're saying the process of evolution is accidental, but the accidental, you're saying accidental the thing that it's missing from. So it's like undesirable or unfortunate happening.
No, I wouldn't say undesirable.
Sure.
If anything, I would, right, okay, let's go with sorry, someone actually said in my chat, which was very good, an unintentional consequence.
No intent.
Yeah.
Okay. So if it's an unintentional consequence, if evolution is an unintentional consequence, then the thing that's causing evolution, some mechanism, is also an unintended consequence of something before it. And if all of evolution, from your view, is actually
unintended consequence, isn't the same thing as accident. Craig is saying there's no teleology, not that it's an accident or that it happened by accident. I'm assuming that what the person means is happened for no reason, which sounds like teleology, but you can just reinterpret it that as has no cause or is random. It's not random. It's absolutely not random.
Unintentional. To me, without exactly telling us how this accidental process produces very purposeful things. Like, for instance, like I think about like snake venom. Like, it accidentally produced venom, a very specific type of protein that literally melts the insides of like rats so they can consume it easier, right? But that was an accident. But we don't have any B12 injection rattlesnakes. You know, when you're going on a hike and oh shit, I got bit by a snake, and someone goes, don't worry, it's a B12 snake. It just as well could have developed, right? A B12
right. Well,
snake.
No, because there wouldn't be any selective pressure for a snake to do something that conveys no survival advantage for it, but does convey survival advantage for something else. It doesn't work that way. It's one of the laws of evolution. I think I don't know if it has a name or not. I can't remember. Now, that can happen if there's a symbiotic relationship, like bees and flowers.
We look at the snake. Why does it have venom? Because there is a mutation that gave it something that could protect itself. And
the mutations that cause slight variances within the population are unintended and they're unpredictable. But natural selection is not random at all. So to call it an accident or whatever, I don't know.
Mutation was beneficial. Well, no, it was accidental. That mutation wasn't purposeful. It wasn't planned.
Is there a purpose in
the
defending
mutation
yourself?
that allowed it to do that was unintentional.
Okay,
and
so
the fact that it can now defend itself is an unintended consequence. It's a beneficial consequence.
Why does it
but
defend
it's still
itself?
accidental because it wants to live.
No.
Yeah, so I don't know. I would say it differently, but I agree with all that. It's not accidental, it's unintended. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know, guys. I don't know if I can subject myself really to much more of that. I'm going to be coming out with some content on oh man, this dipshit again. I'll give it to him. He's prolific.
Don't misunderstand.
Pope Francis did not go to hell. This guy's not Catholic though. Weird. What the hell was it? He has this video. It's like 5 scientific proofs atheism is false. I have it right here in a different tab. 5 scientific proofs debunking atheism. Where the hell is it? Scientific. Oh yeah, right there. Dinosaurs, DNA, the rings of Saturn. I haven't listened to the entire thing, but it's so bad. Kitty cat. It's so incredibly bad. I gotta listen to what he hears about what he says about
Pope Francis died this morning, and I just want to make this quick video explaining and proving that he is not in hell. Okay, I know with 100% certainty that he did not go to hell. All right, there's all sorts of stuff going around, like, oh, he was a heretic, he preached a false gospel, and of course you got the Catholics mourning his death. Oh, he's in a better place now, we don't have to grieve, at least like the world does. But here we go. What does the Bible actually say? Who cares about what people say? Let's actually go to the scriptures. What is so absent in a lot of these discussions is what God says. I hear a lot of people, I hear a lot of Christians, but I don't hear God. So what is our job? We are supposed to be listening to God, not men. Let's open up to Genesis. This is creation. This is the foundation of all creation. This is what happened. Yahweh God formed man from the dust of the ground and breathed into.
I hate him so much. I hate the way he sounds. I hate him.
His nostrils the breath of life, and so the man became a living being. And he told Adam not to eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, for in the day that you eat from it, you will surely die. And from Adam's side came Eve. We know the story. This is the basis for marriage. We have marriage because God instituted it.
Holy fucking shit. Get to the point.
What does he say at the end here? He refused to be comforted, and he said, surely I will go down to the grave in mourning for my son. So his father wept for him. Sheol means the grave, by the way. In the New Testament, it's translated as Hades. That's the Greek word, and this is the transliteration of.
Sheol does not mean the grave. They literally, Jews believed in, they wouldn't have called it Hades, or it wouldn't have been the same concept of Hades, but no, it is the afterlife. They don't really believe in a hell. So no, yeah, Sheol, it's like a physical, literal like place underground where the dead people go.
Of the Hebrew word Sheol. But if you were to translate it, it means the grave or the ground. Okay. We see this theme repeatedly in the Psalms and just generally the Old Testament. David said this, there is no.
It might translate to that, but that's not what it means at all.
Remembrance of you in death, in Sheol or in the grave, who will give you thanks? When we die, are we going to be thanking God anymore? No, it's because we are dead. Again, David said in Psalm 16, for you will not forsake my soul to Sheol, the grave. You will not give your Holy One over to see corruption. David knows that he is going to go to Sheol one day, and he also looks forward to the Holy One. This is referring to Jesus. Jesus is not going to be given over to see corruption. Peter quoted this in Acts chapter 2 saying, David both died and was buried, and his tomb is with us to this day. His tomb, Sheol, the grave, these all basically mean the same thing. It's just where people go when they die. And so he was a prophet, and he looked ahead to the resurrection of Jesus. He was neither forsaken to Hades, nor did his.
He's not telling us anything about how he knows Pope Francis is not in hell.
Flesh see corruption. Later on in Acts chapter 13, the same concept. Commanding men that everyone everywhere should repent, because he has fixed a day in which he will judge the world in righteousness through a man whom he determined, having furnished proof to all by raising him from the dead. The proof that God is going to judge the world is that he raised Jesus from the dead. Now, how is God going to judge the world in righteousness? Well, we see later on in the book of Acts, Paul preaching once again, referring to the Old Testament, the law and the prophets, verse 15, having a hope in God for which these men are waiting, that they're.
Okay, we're going to fast forward because by reading the timestamps, it says hell hasn't happened yet. And then at the end, he says, what will happen to the Pope?
And when it comes to Pope Francis, everything that I've seen him say online throughout these past several years that I've been paying attention, I saw no sign of him understanding the gospel at all. So I am highly confident that on that day of judgment, he is going to get his soul and body destroyed in hell.
There's no fucking way. Holy fucking shit. Pope Francis did not go to hell. On Judgment Day, his soul will be destroyed and he will go to hell. I cannot. Oh, this fucking piece of shit.
Understanding the gospel at all. So I am highly confident that on that day of judgment, he is going to get his soul and body destroyed in hell. Now, do I know that for certain? Am I dogmatically saying this like, oh, he's certainly going to hell on that day? No, I don't know that. Only God knows the heart and what he really, really believed. I am only a judge of fruit, and I'm not a perfect judge. Maybe he repented at the last moment. I don't know. But this idea that everyone's a child of God and there are many paths to God and all that kind of stuff, nobody who reads Romans or basically any book of the Bible for that matter would ever say such a thing.
This is so, oh man. Oh, this is so great. What does he think hell is?
Thing. Let's go to one more verse here. Matthew chapter 10, verse 28. If you still don't quite understand the picture of hell, the awful picture of hell, Jesus said to the disciples who were worrying about persecution, do not fear those who kill the body but are unable to kill the soul, but rather fear God, that's him, who is able to destroy both soul and body in hell. If Pope Francis did not have his sins forgiven, he is going to have both his soul and his body destroyed in hell. Once again, hell is a place where people have their bodies. They're living in hell, okay? It's not, they die and then they go to some spiritual hell and they're separated from God or whatever. No, hell is consistently described as a physical place in the Bible. So now that we understand what is actually going to happen when it comes to judgment and heaven and hell and all this stuff, it's rather who is going to inherit eternal life versus who is going to perish. Okay, that's the question.
It's really funny, like hardcore conservative Catholics like Matt Walsh, they hate Pope Francis. So then it'd be really interesting to ask somebody like Walsh, is Pope Francis going to go to hell? Like what he thinks, because he can't say no. He can't say no. But what's hilarious about that is, well, if the answer is no, and Pope Francis stood up for like queer people and whatever else, then and he still gets to go to heaven, then obviously there's nothing wrong with any of that. Oh man.
When it comes to Pope Francis, everything that I've seen him say online throughout these past several years that I've been paying attention, I saw no sign of him understanding the gospel at all. So I am highly confident that on that day of judgment, he is going to get his soul and body destroyed in hell. Now, do I know that for certain? Am I dogmatically saying this like, oh, he's certainly going to hell on that day? No, I don't.
Oh, that's fucking hilarious. Man, yeah, I want to know what people like Matt he doesn't have anything on their website talking about it. I really hate that I'm looking up his YouTube channel because I don't want my algorithm to change.
Let's be clear.
Feminism stuff. Nothing about the Pope. Nothing about the Pope, really.
Let's be clear.
Really, Matt Walsh has nothing to say about the Pope. Huh. That's incredible. Huh. Wow. Oh, man. Kitty cat. Oh. It's time to say goodbye, kitty cat. Rock-a-bye and good night. Go to sleep, little kitty. Anyways, but Kitty, no. Okay. Oh, Kitty, that's right. You were in the window. She likes to look out that window. That's our cat. No, it's my cat. What was this guy saying, Skylar? Peterson really pushing it. Fuck. Didn't finish. Not going to ignore it. I have no idea what you're talking about. Anyways. You know what? This is the truest thing that's ever been said. Okay, I will take 3 audience questions. And then I gotta get out of here, take a shower, and then film my reaction content for a messenger of truth. That fucking thing about the Pope. I'm going to start off tomorrow's video with that. That was so priceless. Call me emo. I did see that email. I haven't read everything yet, but I took a quick look at some of the attachments. I have no idea what this comment means. I don't know if you're being critical of me or what. I can't interpret that. What's the cat's name? The cat's name is Kitty Cat Peterson. That's why I call her Kitty all the time. And Doug sent me. I don't have opinions on cat breeds. My 5 favorite, I don't know, there would be snowshoe Siamese, snowshoe Siamese, snowshoe Siamese, snowshoe Siamese, and then my favorite would be snowshoe Siamese because that's what Kitty Cat Peterson is. Aren't seeds in stasis rather than not life? Yeah, so I use the seed example because the seed is the closest thing. The seed is the closest analog we have to something that's not alive from which life begets, because the only thing that triggers it to go into that dormant state to an active metabolic living state is is just physical conditions, but then the chemistry of life is just physical conditions. So that's what I use, or that's why I use it. Water and temperature, right? I mean, those are like the most important. I hope the next pope looks unhinged. What does that even mean? What's the airspeed velocity of an unladen swallow? Well, I don't know if you mean an African unladen swallow or a different species. The doofus from the video. Okay, so let me try to reinterpret what you said. He rose to the level of the Pope without understanding the Gospels. What a stupid thing to say. I still don't get it. Do you think the Pope is I don't know that. Ah! What is your favorite color? Blue. No, wait, green. Ah! Yeah, I do think that the Pope was a much better, and the Pope is a biblically accurate. I love the biblically accurate meme. Pope Francis is biblically accurate Christian. Everybody else is just completely fake. So I was talking about the feller you were showing earlier. Yeah, I just have no idea what's going on anymore. So I'm going to have to dip out. But Kitty Cat and I would like to thank you for being here, and we will see you later. Bye, everybody.